became a pilot back in 1980 because at that time the Air Force started hiring pilots off the street. After I graduated from college, I applied and was accepted and went into pilot training. People compare pilots to artists, and the flying to begin with is more of a science, and I never can remember if it's a left brain or a right brain thing when it's scientific, but after a few years and experience, it switches brains and it becomes an art. So what it is now to me is I know how it should look rather than understanding or memorizing all the numbers. So it's become an art for me, I think. I got into flying the antique aircraft about the same time I got out of flying the military airplanes. And the first one I bought was the Stearman, which is the yellow biplane. And it does two things for me. One is it took the sting out of not being able to fly the military stuff anymore because it is fully aerobatic. And the cockpit is the grandfather of the F-16. You can still adjust most of the controls the same way and the seat height, so you can certainly see its heritage. And the second one is, it's kind of funny because it's so slow, but people say, how did you transition from an F-16 to a PT-17 basically? And I said, well, I divide everything by 10. Instead of 800 miles an hour, I do 80. And instead of flying at 40,000 feet, I'll fly at 5,000 feet. So it's actually been a lot of fun because in its own way, it's a very challenging airplane. In fact, the Navy pilots flew it and called it the Yellow Peril because it's so difficult to land. It's very unstable when you land it. Our organization is known as the Tulsa Warbirds, and we're a chapter of the Experimental Aircraft, or EAA, Warbirds of America. Ours is the local Tulsa chapter. The EAA is probably best known for the annual fly-in they have up at Oshkosh, Wisconsin, that just ended. I can't quite think of the name of the fly-in now, but it happens at the end of July each year. A few weeks ago, we took a fellow from a Wish of a Lifetime organization out of Colorado. He's in a nursing home in Enid. I think he's 83 years old, and we took him on a formation flight. And it's something he'd always wanted to do and see in an open cockpit biplane, specifically an open cockpit biplane. I think it added a little bit to it for him to have done it in a military aircraft. Our flight was with another fellow named Steve Campbell. His Stearman looks virtually identical to mine. And we did a formation flight. We went out and flew over Will Rogers' birthplace in Claremore for something to do, and then we worked our way back.
My dad was a pilot who was in the Civilian Pilot Training Corps during World War II. He was getting a degree in chemistry from the University of Missouri. His brother was killed in a B-24 on one of the raids over the oil fields in Romania during World War II, which left him an only surviving son. He had a degree in chemistry, so they wanted him to come to Tulsa to work in the chemistry lab at the Mid-Continent Refinery here. It was the largest inland refinery at that time and was felt that it was safe from any bombing raids from either coast, from either the Germans or the Japanese. So he never actually flew in the military, but after the war, he and two other fellows bought a surplus Stearman for the princely sum of $1,000. So perhaps my first ride in an airplane was in the front seat of a Stearman, sitting in my mother's lap with her holding on to me. That's long enough ago. The FAA doesn't probably have an interest in that right now. We always note that the rudder pedals are worn. Usually the paint is gone, shiny metal underneath. And you look at those pedals and you realize that some of the wear on those pedals was a 24-year-old Navy ensign or lieutenant who is at this very moment in a F-4 Hellcat cockpit at the bottom of the China Sea. So the airplanes are really a piece of history, and keeping that alive, the memory of those people alive, as well as a part of who we are, where we are, we feel is very important. We feel you really can't own one of these airplanes. You have the privilege, which I consider a privilege, to be able to preserve a piece of history. And my goal is to pass this airplane in good condition on to a new generation that will come along and keep that going for us.